The same way teachers of akhlaq will look at us, or when we study akhlaq, we look at ourselves, and we realize what's going on in our heart. Because a lot of times we don't know what's wrong with us, because we love ourselves too much, and sometimes it's too hard. That's why in the traditions we have to account for yourself, analyze yourself, before in the day of judgment they will analyze you. And believe me, the day of judgment will be much different. In this world, because of hubbul dhat, because we love ourselves, we are very easygoing when it comes to self-analysis. One of the best ways to change ourselves is the science of akhlaq and to have taqwa. And one of the chapters in taqwa in akhlaq is being conceited, self-conceit or vanity. This is a big problem. They call this in Arabic ujb. We have an ujb and we have kibr. What's the difference between these two terminologies? Ujb means I like myself, I'm happy about myself, you can say. Kibr means that I think I'm better than others. They're similar. One is self-conceit, one is arrogance, but both of these go back to the fact that you think you are good. You think that those qualities that you have received, and yes, they either might be true or it might be imaginary. You might think you're good, but you're actually not. But in reality, what you see is that you separate those from God. You don't think that God has given you those attributes. I ask you this question as one of the solutions to kibr and arrogance and ujb. Where is all good from? Where is all kamal from? Where is all perfection from? It's from God. God has all the attributes of perfection. So if you see anything good in yourselves, know, where did you get that from? From God. He is beauty, therefore He created the universe beautiful. He is Rahman ar-Rahim, therefore you see kindness in this world. If He wasn't ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, you wouldn't see kindness in this world. So this world is a reflection from God's characteristics, or you can say God's attributes and names. And the more someone is closer to God, the more he receives that perfection. But mankind does not have the right to become arrogant. Mankind does not have the right to have ujb. This was the biggest trait that caused Satan to fall. Satan worshiped God for 6,000 years. And sometimes even says one of his salat lasted 2,000 years. If you think about yourself and your worship, sometimes you get happy. I did salat al-layl, I come to Jum'ah. Sometimes you think everything's going good for you. Did we worship more or Satan? Satan worshipped 6,000 years, different, even longer than the earthly time. But one test God gave him, he failed. He just couldn't listen to the command of God when it came to sujood of Adam. He just couldn't do it. Again, it's this istakbara. He was arrogant. So to realize that if we become arrogant, God forbid, if we become so conceited, and sometimes, unfortunately, brothers and sisters, you see this in the community. Some people complain. They say, why are some of the mu'mineen, they seem a little bit more arrogant than people that don't practice? Because worship brings arrogance sometimes. Worship that is not done correctly. What's the entire purpose, I ask, of worship? What is the entire purpose? What is the quality? Ayatollah Sistani has it in some of his books of usul and books of Bahth al-Kharij that he has, that worship, the reality of worship is to bring yourself down. Tanazzul, you could say, to bring yourself down towards God, to be humble. That's the essence of worship, to be humble. What kind of worship is it after it that you're arrogant now? And you say, I'm better than others. I've worshiped. That's satanic. That's the worship of shaitan. That's similar to what shaitan is. And those that you see, the greats that we had, the more they worshiped, the more humble they were with people. The more they wanted to sit with the poor. The more they wanted to sit with the oppressed. Imam Zayn al-Abidin, for example, you see, it was his waladat, Ali ibn al-Husayn alayhi salam, the grandson, the son of the grandson of Rasulullah, the fourth Imam, that his head was in prostration, his nose was in prostration. It says in some of the hadith, 1,000 units of prayer day and night. But again, not only was here calloused, here was calloused. Because he would take provisions in secret, Sadaqatul sir, secretly, privately, for the poor. It didn't cause this arrogance and worship and say, I don't need to deal with the poor anymore. I'll make dua for them. No, he would come and he would get upset. And if somebody came to his house and begged, he would not allow that person to ever leave. They say, the poet says about him, the only la he says, no he says, was la ilaha illallah. He didn't say la for anybody else. He never said no. Whenever someone asks him, because this is the Prophet and the family of the Prophet, they're this way, they were generous. They wouldn't say la. So therefore, Zainul Abidin, which in reality means the adornment of the worshippers, worshipped God so much, but also was the most humble. And when it came to his family, I believe some of the traditions have this, that if I go on the day of Friday and buy meat, I buy food for my family, it is higher than even setting free a slave. How important is to set a slave free? Because that's a criterion for one of the best actions, that somebody that is going to be free. He says, if I go to my family members and I make them happy, my wife and kids, I purchase something for them. That is equal to that, because the family is important. Freeing people is important. Worshipping is important. All of this causes us humility. So when we look at some of the hadith about ujb, it says, لَوْ لَمْ تَذْنُبُوا لَخَشِيَتْ عَلَيْكُمْ, from the Prophet, مَا هُوَ أَكْبَرْ مِنْ ذَلِكَ الْعُجْبُ الْعُجْبُ. This is a very interesting hadith. It says, if people did not sin, I am afraid that they will do something worse. Not meaning that we should sin. I'm not saying, na'udhu billah, we should start sinning. But the fact that ujb is so dangerous, God would rather have us have a little bit sin and do istighfar than be someone that's muta'ajjib. Because that person that is muta'ajjib can lead himself to a huge disaster like shaitan. So that sinning and asking for forgiveness. Sinning, I'm not encouraging sinning, but when you read these hadith, it causes you to repent and say, it's okay if you fall down, if you make a mistake, you have to stand back up. Because Allah wants you to be humble. Allah wants you to believe that you make mistakes, that you sin, that I do istighfar. That is why istighfar is one of the greatest worships that we have, seeking repentance. I said the story before. I met some person, he went to Hajj, and he says, in Hajj, everyone was crying, but I wasn't crying. And they asked him why. He said, because I didn't have any sins. Everybody else is crying because I don't have any sins, so I didn't cry in Hajj, for example. So that is ujb. You see that the Prophet of Islam, his family, you see the way they would cry and the way they would make dua as if they are the biggest sinners in the world, but they're not, they're the purest. You see this beautiful hadith from Isa alayhi salam, from Jesus alayhi salam. And again, the way that we preserve the heritage of all the prophets, because Islam is the final religion. And in Islam, there are sayings of the other prophets that aren't even in the Bible. The Prophet of Islam, his family, they preserved the sayings of other prophets. Christians that become Muslim, they say that I have a better relationship with Jesus alayhi salam when I became Muslim. So we love Jesus. We ask things because of his honor to Jesus. We could do tawassul to Jesus alayhi salam. He's a perfect human being, complete human being. And look at this hadith, how beautiful it is from him. Just as a plant grows in soft ground, not where it is rocky and hard, so also wisdom sprouts and grows in a heart which is humble and soft. If you want to have wisdom, where does it grow? A humble heart. A true alim, a true scholar, a wise person is humble. As they say, a tree that has fruit bends down because it has fruit. It's humble. That's an expression they have. But not in the hard hearts of the arrogant. You won't find wisdom there. If you find someone that says they're a scholar, they say that they're a good worshiper, but you see that they're arrogant, know that they haven't practiced Islam correctly, or ourselves. Say that we haven't practiced, because wisdom isn't there. Don't you see that the man who keeps his head high bashes it against the roof? Good example. Person has head high, All the time he's going to walk and ding, he's going to hit his head. While one whose head is low has the roof as his friend and shelter. One that is humble and walks through the door, especially, now modern times, the homes you see are very tall, the doors, you don't have to, but a lot of times I've seen older homes, you'd have to kind of duck and come in. As our teacher, Sheikh Ahmad Murshid, would say back then, in Tehran, there were these very long hats, and first the hat would come, then the person would come. So they would duck down to go through that, but the humble person that is ducking? It's an expression. Not that arrogant one that would hit his head here. So we'll talk about more about this, that people that have arrogance, as we have, will not enter heaven, or the Quran has. Thus Allah does seal every proud, arrogant heart. Their hearts are sealed. And the solution to this so far is this: realize, where did this ni'mah come from? If it is true, where did it come from? It came from God. God gave it to us. So we say, Alhamdulillah. We thank God for it. But we balance it not in a way that you lose hope. You make yourself lose hope in God so much, you become so humble in a way that I lose hope. I'm the worst person and I don't have hope anymore. Not that way. And not in a way that you're so arrogant that you don't want to do istighfar. Balanced. That I have fear and I have hope at the same time. I have fear of God and hope of God. A balanced person. In a way that if it comes to, for example, the night of destiny and Shahr Ramadan is coming, you see that person will be crying for his sins, but not in a way that he's going to be hopeless. He's going to have a large amount of hope, and he's going to have a large amount of fear. So realize and ask ourselves, do we have anything else? Are we anything but from what God has given us? If you understand God and His rahmat and His power, therefore you never become arrogant. The reason we become arrogant is because we haven't understand God. We haven't understood our dependency on God. That we are fuqara, we are in constant need of Him, and that He is Ghaniyul Hamid, and He is self-sufficient. He does not need anything. He doesn't even need our worship. Allahumma aghfir lil mu'minina wa lil mu'minat. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Wal asr. Inna al-insana lafi khusr. Illa alladhina amanu wa amilu salihat. Wa tawasaw bil haqq. Wa tawasaw bis sabr. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والحمد لله رب العالمين ونصلي ونسلم على حبيبه سيدنا المصطفى المحمد اللهم صل على محمد آل محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين علي أمير المؤمنين والطاهرة فاطمة الزهراء والحسن والحسين وعلي بن الحسين ومحمد بن علي وجعفر بن محمد وموسى بن جعفر وعلي بن موسى ومحمد بن علي وعلي بن محمد والحسن بن علي والخلف القائم المهدي وصلى على محمد وآل محمد وأجل فرجهم على محمد وآل محمد صلى على محمد وآل محمد. Both Shia and Sunni hadith talk about the Mahdi. Imam Mahdi will return. Both Shia and Sunni say that he will be the son of Fatima az-Zahra, from Fatima az-Zahra's progeny. Both hadith talk about a time period of Akhir Zaman, the end of time, will happen, and then the Mahdi will come, and then inshallah there will be blessings, there will be barakat in this world, inshallah. We'll talk about the Mahdi. When you talk about intidhar al-faraj, we as followers of the Prophet Muhammad, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad, we are anticipating and awaiting for Imam Mahdi to come back, the Mahdi to come back. And this intidhar is something that is ingrained in us. Look at some of the traditions we have. Again, both Shia and Sunni have about 1,000 narrations about Al-Mahdi. Not only in Shia sources and Sunni sources as well, chapters about the Mahdi. Look at this tradition from Abu Khalid narrates, and I believe Imam Ma'asum says this: Ya Abu Khalid, إن أهل زمان غيبته القائلين بإمامته والمنتظرين لظهوره أفضل من أهل كل زمان. The best people are those that await for the Mahdi to come. The best people are those that actively play a role in that the son of Fatima Zahra can come back and will fill the world with justice. As both we said Shia and Sunni have in Hadith, the Mahdi comes with Jesus. And the Mahdi prays in front and Jesus prays behind him. And the world will become beautiful. It will be peace on earth. But that awaiting period is very important for us, to await. And not just waiting, waiting, but playing an active role in getting ourselves ready, getting a society ready to be able to implement Islam throughout the world, inshallah. In this hadith, it says the best people are those that await for Imam Mahdi. This is the best people of all. If you look at all categories, all time periods, the best is this time period. And it says why. Why is it that those that are in this time period, those that are during the occultation of Imam Mahdi are the best? In hadith it says, لأن الله تبارك وتعالى أعطاهم من العقول والأفهام والمعرفة. Because Allah gave them aql, Allah gave them intellect, Allah gave them knowledge. Because we believe in Prophet Muhammad and his family through our aql and logic, because we haven't seen the Prophet of Islam. Have you seen the Prophet of Islam? No, we lived 1400 years later. But you believe in him as if somebody that is next to him. You might even believe more. Why? Because of the aql. You believe in his message. You believe in the Quran. Right? So therefore, this time period is the best because you have reached religion and deen with your aql, not just with your eyes. Many people during the Prophet's times would see miracles. And they would believe in miracles. They would believe in that Prophet because of that miracle. You have seen the miracle of the Quran through your intellect. You know that nobody can make one verse like the Holy Quran. And if they wanted to make one verse like the Holy Quran, it would be, if it was capable, they would do it to destroy Islam. Because we see so many attacks on Islam and Muslims, the best way to get rid of us would be to make another Quran, make another chapter. They never did so. They cannot. Even during the time of the Prophet of Islam, those that studied eloquence and balaghat, they saw that the Quran is incomparable. This is the work of God. So because of your aql, you have come to the Rasulullah, his religion, with your intellect. So you are of the best people because you have used your intellect, not your eyes and ears, to come to religion. Because this is a holier type of knowledge than knowledge of the five senses. The intellect is ashraf from the eyes and ears. وَجَعَلَهُمْ فِي ذَلِكَ الزَّمَانِ بِمَنْزِلَةِ الْمُجَاهِدِينَ بَيْنَ يَدَيْ رَسُولِ اللَّهِ بِالسَّيْفِ. And those that believe during the time, such a difficult time period, they're those that are with the Prophet as mujahideen, with the sword, it says in Hadith. أُولَٰئِكَ الْمُخْلَصُونَ حَقًّا وَشِيئَتُنَا صِدْقًا وَدُعَاتُ فِي دِينِ اللَّهِ عَزَّ وَجَلَّ سِرًّا وَجَهْرًا. So when we look at the situation today, brothers and sisters, you see that, now I'm not going to take a political side, but you see, for example, what's happening in Ukraine, for example. You see bombardments, you see refugees, millions of people running away. Not only in Ukraine, one of the problems with the media is they focus just on one dhulm and oppression. What about in Yemen, for example? What about in Palestine? Well, all over the world. Unfortunately, in Pakistan, there was a bombing of a Shia masjid recently. Dhulm all over the world we're seeing. What if you are in Ukraine right now and fire is coming from above you? You would say, Allah, this is enough. Allah, I can't. You have families, you have babies. Whenever there's war, not specifically Ukraine, anywhere, there will be a time period. Either you will pray for Imam Mahdi and say, bring the Mahdi for us, or Allah will bring the time period so bad, fire from the sky, sickness, Until you say, where is the faraj? Mata al-faraj? When is the faraj going to happen? You either make dua now, or Allah will make it so hard on you that you will be forced to make dua, like those that are being bombarded right now in Ukraine. So we understand when you see dhulm and you see violence and you see wars, this causes us to remember, brothers and sisters, if you do not anticipate the coming of the Mahdi, that we said both Shia and Sunni believe in the Mahdi. We have 1,000 hadith together, both Shia and Sunni, about the Mahdi. And if you don't want him to come back, then the time period will be so hard on you, on Muslims, that they'll say, Mata al-Faraj, and say, where is Imam Zaman? When is he going to come? So for us, we have to actively wait and await the Faraj, inshallah, and make dua for all those that are oppressed, to all those that are dhulm has happened to them. And inshallah, bring the Mahdi back, inshallah, to bring back Imam Mahdi and make us of his companions and aiders and assisters, and not only await, to actively get each other ready, to get each other prepared. And how is that? By our deen, our religion, Tawheed, because when he comes, he will implement Tawheed in the world. So if you are a muwahid, you will be on his side. How else is that done? With Imam Hussein alayhi salam, remembering Hussein ibn Ali alayhi salam, because one of the statements that Imam Mahdi has and the companions have is Ya la tharat al-Hussein, the revenge of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. So it's linked with love of Ahlul Bayt, love of the family of the Prophet, love of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, and love of Tawheed and perfecting ourselves for Tawheed. And this is a belief that all Muslims have about Imam Mahdi, that he will come back in hundreds of hadith that we have about him, inshallah. Ya Allah, we ask to bring back, inshallah, the Mahdi. We ask Allah to give izzat, inshallah, to the Muslimin, to give security to all of those in the world that need security, inshallah. We ask Allah, all those that are sick, cure the sick. All of those that have passed away, bless their souls, especially the son of Brother Fayyad that is here, the mother of Hajj Qadim that has passed away, and everyone that has, for your dear that have passed away, Allah may bless their souls, inshallah, and make us of the companions of Imam Mahdi, inshallah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل